The first E is educate.
Mm-hmm.
So don't train your people. People are like, what do you mean don't train? Of course we have to train our people. Yes, but before you spend the time, the money, the resources in training them on the task training, the skill training to perform that job, the functional training, before you do that, you have to first educate them on who you are, what the company is about. What service or product are you delivering? How do you want that delivered to your customer? What is it? What does your brand mean? What is your brand promise? How do people feel that brand promise? How do they experience what that is? So these are things that have to be done from an educational perspective, not just a skill set or functional training.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nutshell of what education is. So the second E is engage. Mm-hmm. And that's all about what does it look like? So how do we take this education and then put it into action? And that's, looking at, again, I would never come into a company and say, this is the way you do it. And that's part of the reason why I call it a recipe, besides my food background. With any recipe, you have the basic ingredients, you have the basic methodology, the steps, right? But to make it uniquely yours and give it your flavor, and in this way, it would be, what is the unique brand promise of your company? What's the flavor you want your culture to be, so that your customers are feeling you different from the other competitor who's delivering the same service or product, right? So taking that recipe, imparting your own flavor into those things, and engaging with your people first, shoulder to shoulder, like you mentioned before, right? Like you have to be there willing to do everything. Like the ex-employee, told me from my dad's experience, don't expect them to do something you as a leader is not willing to do yourself. And so getting in there, engaging with them and showing them the way of how to engage with their end customer. And so when I work with people, I look at what they're doing already. And from an outside perspective, with having this kind of multicultural, multi-dimensional perspective, I'm able to say, okay, let's look at what's working, where are we getting the best feedback, what might not work, and what might be happening in another industry that I've experienced that could really work well for what's happening in your environment already. The third E is entrust. So again, you can't just start with entrusting your people. You have to, that's why it's a process. That's why you have to start with educating, starting with your core values, vision, and mission, but starting with educating, then engaging with, and then once you've done all of these steps and things involved in those two first E's, you are free to entrust your people without you micromanaging, without you being there to follow through and have ownership for their job, for their company, not saying it just as a job, but true ownership as their voice in a company, that they feel empowered to make decisions on their own for the betterment of the company. And what better way to then also relieve upper management or an owner of a company, depending upon the type of business you're in, to free you to then, I was going to say, go working on your company, not in your company. Is so many, I've heard from so many people now since the pandemic, they are like, I don't have time, where I have to be in the company because of what's happening with the labor shortage. But this will resolve some of that labor shortage. You will become the employer of choice by creating this culture that attracts people to you. And not only can you be working on your business, not in your business, how about the concept of actually taking time to live and be with your family, take vacations, like just gain your life back. So actually, I think maybe this is a good time to also mention that plus one E in the recipe, and that's empathy. And so I think as someone coming in from the outside, they're able to have a clear picture of the whole operation of what's going on, but also able to touch on the EQ, the emotional quotient, the human aspect that is so crucial today, particularly post-pandemic, where the people side of the business is important, and employees no longer willing to just work for a paycheck, no longer willing to just be there and do task-driven jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're even willing to take a pay cut where money, is usually the first thing thrown at someone.